Let's begin. When I was a girl of about 12, I used to stay in a village in North Karnataka with my grandparents. Those days, the transport system was not very good, so we used to get the morning paper only in the afternoon. The weekly magazine used to come one day late. All of us would wait eagerly for the bus, which used to come with the papers, weekly magazines, and the post. So, we are talking about a long time ago. We are also talking about a time when, in the remote rural areas of India, the conveyance, the bus service was not really great. In fact, I remember a time when I was in Goa in a place called Fatrade, where we used to get the bus only twice a day. If you had to go somewhere, only twice a day we could get the bus to the nearest town. So I can absolutely relate to what I am reading here. At that time, Triveni was a very popular writer in the Kannada language. She was a wonderful writer. Her style was easy to read and very convincing. Her stories usually dealt with complex psychological problems in the lives of ordinary people and were always very interesting. There is a lesson to be learned here. You do not need to write bombastic words in order to make your writing better. Okay, it is not necessary. In fact, considering if you want to reach a number of people all over the world, and a lot of these people will not be native speakers of the English language, in that case, it would make sense to keep your language very fluid, very easy to understand, use simple words, but use them well so that they create that sense of that aesthetic sense of beauty. It appeals to people's senses. So, in the Kannada language, Triveni was a popular writer. Let's just take a look at Triveni. Is Triveni's Triveni was her pen name, and she is actually Anasuya Shankar. Okay, there is a Wikipedia page devoted to her. You can go and check that later. Now, apart from the language that she used, she also wrote about ordinary things, so that made it relatable for people. They could find bits and pieces of their own life in what she was writing. But her stories always try to delve into some kind of complex psychological problem, okay, in the lives of people. So there were layers. Unfortunately for Kannada literature, she died very young. Even now, after 40 years, people continue to appreciate her novels. One of her novels, called Kashi Yatre. Now, the words in different languages all over India, since they have they can basically trace back their roots to one or two very old ancient languages. The words are similar. So Kashi stands for the place Kashi, and Yatre means Yatra. So journey to Kashi. Was appearing as a serial in the Kannada weekly Dharmavira. Again, this is a word that you people who do not know Kannada will still understand. What is a serial? Instead of getting the entire novel in your hand in one shot, it is printed episode by episode in every edition of a particular magazine. And you get this thing at the end of each episode, to be continued. It is the story of an old lady and her ardent desire, her very real and very strong desire to go to Kashi or Varanasi. And this has always been something, for the Indians, um, whether it be Hindus, Muslims, and whether it be India or anywhere in the world, people like to go on pilgrimages. Okay, and they have this belief that there are certain places in this world where if you go and visit and you do and you perform all the rites and rituals associated, your sins are washed away and you feel more confident for the day when you have to go and meet your maker. Most Hindus believe that going to Kashi and worshipping Lord Vishweshwara is the ultimate punya. So this old lady also believed, and punya means that you are doing something good, which will stand you in good stead when you finally meet your God. This old lady also believed in this, and the struggle to go there was described in that novel. In the story, there was also a young orphan girl who falls in love, but there was no money for the wedding. In the end, the old lady gives away all her savings without going to Kashi. She says the happiness of this orphan girl is more important than worshipping Lord Visheshwara at Kashi. Now, just like it said over here that that is Triveni's stories, they basically came from the lives of ordinary people. And like I told you, most Indians would like to go to Kashi at least once in their lifetime. Mostly people turn more spiritual towards the old age, and that is when they go on these journeys to meet their God. And through this one, you are looking at the psychological dilemma. What is the dilemma? The dilemma is, do I help this orphan girl, okay, to bring her happiness? Do I spend the money that I have kept aside? God knows how difficult it has been. It has taken me an entire lifetime to put together the amount of money, exactly the amount of money that I will need to go to Kashi. But instead of going to Kashi, and I'm sure if I go to Kashi and if I perform the rites and rituals, and if I take a dip in the holy Ganges, and if I pray to my God, my sins will be washed away and I will probably be free of this cycle of dharma and karma. Okay. But on the other hand, what do I do about this orphan girl? She will have a lifetime of unhappiness if she doesn't get married. So she decides to help the orphan girl ultimately, but definitely she must have wrestled with the two options for quite a long time, and before she could come to this particular decision. And obviously her thought process was probably that um, if we can do something for a fellow human being, that is as good as doing something for God. My grandmother, Krishtaka, never went to school, so she could not read. Every Wednesday, the magazine would come and I would read the next episode of this story to her. This tells us that the magazine was a weekly publication because it came every Wednesday. During that time, she would forget all her work and listen with the greatest concentration. Later, she could repeat the entire text by heart. My grandmother too, and obviously you can understand that for old people it is far more difficult to memorize things. But such was her concentration and focus when she was listening to this story that she remembered every detail. My grandmother too never went to Kashi, and she identified herself with the novel's protagonist. Protagonist is the main hero or heroine or character in the story. In this case, it's that old lady. And I also told you that because Triveni like to take the or base the stories on the ordinary lives of people. A lot of people actually found these stories relatable. And look, here the narrator's grandmother finds the story relatable. She is also old. She is also had a lifetime of looking after her family, and she wants to go to, and she also knows that she doesn't have too much time in her hands, and she wants to go and go to Kashi and purify herself. So, more than anybody else, she was the one most interested in knowing what happened next in the story and used to insist that I read the serial out to her. After hearing what happened next in Kashi Yatre, she would join her friends at the temple courtyard where we children would also gather to play hide and seek. Now, here we have a picture of the local temple, and here are all the grandmothers, women of similar ages. They are sitting together discussing the latest episode, just like people nowadays discuss Durandar. And the children are playing around. All right. Now, look in the, because this is a story, yes, but because it is written with the flavor of the soil, which means it is so intrinsically Indian, okay, in the way it is written and the things it describes, that you can get a glimpse of Indian life at that time. And there are a number of good things that I find here. Number one is, see, people of similar ages can get together and discuss their problems, offer solutions, offer each other support, because old people can become very lonely. In this city of so many people, old people are very, very lonely and depressed because they do not have this community system. They have become detached, and their children have grown up and gone away for work to different cities and maybe even outside the country. So they can't spend time with their grandson or granddaughter. But in those days, things were, at least in this aspect, much better. Another thing is the children. So nowadays, there are so many lonely children. They do not have enough time outside of their tuitions and outside of their school and so many extracurricular activities. They do not have the time to just freely play, make games out of their imagination, share things, sit and just while away the time with each other, bonding all the time. These are the same children who will become grown-ups. These grown-ups are the same people who will one day become old. And they will have a lifetime together. They can fall back on each other. That kind of companionship, that kind of support is unparalleled. They don't feel lonely. And then you also find out that where does this happen? This happens in or in front of a temple or a masjid or a church, because that is where people go and congregate. That is where people come together. She would discuss the latest episode with her friends. At that time, I never understood why there was so much debate about the story. Well, we have already the answer why there was so much debate over the story. That is because everybody could relate to it. Everybody is trying to decide whether, if it had been her, whether she would have gone to Kashi, because how can you turn around from God? Or whether she would have helped the orphan girl with her money. Once I went for a wedding with my cousins to the neighboring village. In those days, a wedding was a great event. The reason for this was because not that weddings were more lavish in those times. Obviously, lavishness has come with money and which is in display now. Okay, every wedding is like a movie, project that is, basically taking place. But in those days, avenues of entertainment were lesser. There were no mobile phones to keep people occupied for hours. There was no TV. There were, you didn't have VR sets. You didn't have a lot of the other playing facilities that are there now. So obviously, sources of entertainment were few and far between. When there was a wedding, again, a lot of people from various villages, the invitees, would come over, would descend upon the wedding house, and that place would be like a beehive for a few days. Okay, weddings would not be a one evening affair, and people would talk to each other, people would exchange news, people would all pitch in the real work in the wedding home. Okay, no caterers, no event managers. Things are being done by the family members, and obviously the family members themselves would number in 40s, 50s, 80s, and then come the friends and people from faraway places, and they all enjoy and they all have a great time together. We would eat and play endlessly, savoring meaning enjoying the freedom because all the elders were busy. So the children also got free time. I went for, and by free time, I don't mean that, okay, they didn't have free time before, they did. But here, free means that they are not being watched every moment by parents to correct their ways, asking them to do things for them, run errands, and things like that. I went for a couple of days, but ended up staying there for a week. When I came back to my village, I saw my grandmother in tears. I was surprised, for I had never seen her cry, even in the most difficult situations. So, again, in those days, people were generally tougher. Life was tough. People were hardworking, they were tough. They were not easily daunted by challenges. Nowadays, people, they absolutely break down the moment there is something out of their routine that comes and challenges them. Okay, they fly into a rage, or they become they cannot control their emotions and they become hyper. Okay, but in those days, people were much tougher. They knew how to. They were resourceful also. They knew how to tackle. Or they found out a way. When she saw her grandmother in tears, that was a surprise for her. What had happened? I was worried. Avva, is everything all right? Are you okay? I used to call her Avva, which means mother in the Kannada spoken in the North Karnataka. Now, this was again pretty normal. Calling your grandmother Ma, Amma, okay, pretty normal. In a lot of Indian households, that happens. He nodded but did not reply. I did not understand and forgot about it. In the night after dinner, we were sleeping in the open terrace of our house. It was a summer night, and there was a full moon. Now, in my childhood also, on hot days like these, like today is a hot day, right? We would normally go up to the terrace and sleep, because there we would get the breeze. The night time is not as bad outside as it is inside of the house, because the bricks, they absorb the heat and then they radiate the heat inside, and the house is basically like a furnace that has just been switched off. Okay, and it's still radiating heat. So we used to go to the terrace, and it was like such freedom to sleep under the open sky. And here also we find that that's what is happening. Avva came and sat next to me. Her affectionate hands touched my forehead. I realized she wanted to speak. I asked her, "What is the matter?" Here again, very Indian in context. Like I said, mentioned the flavor of the soil, everything that she is writing about, and not you will not find too many difficult words here, but she is able to uh, bring out that flavor that this is Indian. And I can, the moment I read about her affectionate hands touched my forehead, I remember my grandmother's hand on my forehead, and I never knew softer hands. Okay. I mean, it was a completely different feel. It felt like if I was sick and I was running a temperature, her hand on my forehead would make me feel like all my pain and suffering has just disappeared. Right? I still remember the sari she used to wear, and I used to eat and go and wash my mouth, and then she would use her sari's pallu to wipe my face, and a softer cloth I have never experienced. So you have these kinds of associations with the place where you are born and brought up, and you experience these things. I realized she wanted to speak. I asked her, "What is the matter?" When I was a young girl, I lost my mother. There was nobody to look after and guide me. My father was a busy man and got married again. In those days, people never considered education essential for girls. So I never went to school. I got married very young and had children. I became very busy. Later, I had grandchildren and always felt so much happiness in cooking and feeding all of you. At times, I used to regret not going to school. So I made sure that my children and grandchildren studied well. See, in such a short paragraph, she has so beautifully captured what difficulties women face, girls face. Okay, they are married off early. The moment they are married off, people expect them to have babies. When they have babies, their entire life goes in looking after the babies and bringing up their children. When their children are well brought up, soon they have children of their own. So now the grandparents, they look after the grandchildren. But in this whole process, it is difficult to time off for yourself. Like I said, in those days, not many machines, not your Swiggy and Zomato and Blinkit and all of that, delivering things in 10 minutes or under. Not everything, in the device you're holding in your palm inside one app. No, you didn't have all of that. You had to work. Now we go to the second part. I could not understand why my 62-year-old grandmother was telling me, a 12-year-old, the story of her life in the middle of the night. Now, 12-year-old would mean somewhere around class 6, I believe. 6 or 7. So obviously these are, important things that she is discussing with a 12-year-old. But I knew I loved her immensely, and there had to be some reason why she was talking to me. Immensely, simple translation, a lot. I looked at her face. It was unhappy, and her eyes were filled with tears. She was a good-looking lady who was usually always smiling. Even today, I cannot forget the worried expression on her face. I leaned forward and held her hand. Avva, don't cry. What is the matter? Can I help you in any way? Yes, I need your help. You know, when you were away, Karmvira came as usual. Now, before I go further, this is a very powerful line. See, grandmother is 62 years old. She is coming to a 12-year-old and telling her that I need your help. And you know very well from experience that if people tell you, do this for me, there is a chance you may or may not do it. But if people honestly came and told you that I need your help, not somebody else's, your help, you immediately get a sense of, okay, I have to help this person. Otherwise, you might be an irresponsible person. Otherwise, you may have a tendency to forget things. But once you understand that, okay, help is really needed and I am capable of giving it, I have been asked for help, requested, you do your level best to do that. That is your innate goodness inside of you. You just change for the moment and become this highly responsible person and helpful person. You know, when you were away, Karmvira came as usual. I opened the magazine. I saw the picture that accompanies the story of Kashi Yatra, and I could not understand anything that was written. Now, many times I rubbed my hands over the pages, wishing they could understand what was written. Now, this has also happened to me a few times. I have opened the book and I have rubbed the pages with my hands and I have tried to, see what it says, but I couldn't understand because it was written in the Kannada language. And I don't know Kannada. But I have to learn it sometime. Maybe when I'm 62, I'll do that. When I knew it was not possible, if only I was educated enough, but I knew it was not possible, if only I was educated enough. So this is, the tone here is regret. She is regretting not having learned how to read. I waited eagerly for you to return. I felt you would come early and read for me. I even thought of going to the village and asking you to read for me. When you want something desperately, it becomes very difficult for you to wait. You become impatient. And that's true for grown-ups as well. I could have asked somebody in this village, but I was too embarrassed to do so. Then people would know that she can't read. I felt very dependent and helpless. We are well off. But what use is money when I cannot be independent? Golden words. What use is money if you are not independent? I did not know what to answer. Avva continued. I have decided I want to learn the Kannada alphabet from tomorrow onwards. I will work very hard. I will keep Saraswati Puja Day during the Dasara as the deadline. That day I should be able to read a novel on my own. I want to be independent. Now she will do the hard work, I know. She will study like no student ever has. I know this. Do you know how I know this? Because she has decided that she wants to study. Nobody has told her to study. Nobody expects her to study. In fact, there might be people who, if they came to know, might discourage her from studying. But because it's her decision, she has felt the need, she will do it. A lot of students often don't study and then they get scoldings from people around. And what is worse than scoldings is when they get this they see this look on people's faces, people obviously close to them, that shows disappointment. And what is even more disappointment is when they sit and kind of realize that there is this yawning gap in their knowledge system inside and they don't feel confident. That is when it totally breaks them. The only way you can counter that as students is to have determination, if to have is to have focus, and it is not to take too much at a time, but little by little. Whatever you do it with full focus. Cover, keep covering, keep working at that mountain, and soon you would have conquered it. And grandmother had that determination written on her face. I also would like to draw your attention to the deadline that she has set. Normally, if I asked you to set a deadline, you would probably set something like, by the end of March next year, I would do it because that gives you one academic year. But end of March doesn't really have any particular significance for you, other than that being an academic, being the end of an academic year. But grandmother is associating it with Saraswati Puja. And we grow up knowing, ever since we are born and the first time we see Saraswati Puja, we grow up knowing that Saraswati Mata has to do with our learning, our knowledge, our arts. And we obviously respect and worship Saraswati Mata. And when you associate your work with something like that, there is a much better chance of you completing that than some arbitrary month or year that does not make sense to you otherwise, except for, okay, I have set that as my deadline, means I will do it by that. It's like saying, okay, I'll do it by the 22nd of August. And doesn't matter what 22nd of August is, I will do it on that day. I saw the determination on her face, yet I laughed at her. Avva, at this age of 62, you want to learn the alphabet? All your hair is grey, your hands are wrinkled, you wear spectacles, and you work so much in the kitchen. Now, why is she laughing? Is she laughing at her? No. She respects her and loves her too much for that. She is laughing because she is just a kid and she has no idea that grown-ups, because she has never seen a grown-up studying. So she has no idea that a grown-up, an old person, can actually study. She thinks it's for kids her age. Childishly, I made fun of the old lady, but she just smiled. For a good cause, if you are determined, you can overcome any obstacle. I will work harder than anybody, but I will do it. For learning, there is no age bar. Oh my God. 2-3 lines. And there are hidden gems, golden gems. Look at this. If you are determined and if it is for a good cause, you can overcome any obstacle. Next one, I will work harder than anybody. Mantra of success, not intelligence, hard work. Intelligence is absolute rubbish. All people have more or less the same gray matter in their heads. It is the application of that gray matter that decides your level of success. So what we call intelligence, and I know people all around you are, elevating intelligence to God level, worshipping intelligence. But please understand, intelligence is absolute rubbish. It is hard work that makes a person. You may understand slightly less. Your grasping power might be slightly lesser than the others. You can make up for it through hard work. But if you work, if you do not work so hard, if you are lazy, you can never make up for it. Then you are looking for dumb luck to do it for you. Now, the third thing she says is, for learning, there is no age bar. And I have seen my own grandmother do this. It is weird how it is strange how so many of these things in this particular story I can actually directly relate to. Because my grandmother at the age of 60, she learned two things in front of my eyes that I had no, I didn't think people could learn in that age. She was a voracious reader in the Bengali language. She suddenly took it into her head that she needs to read the English books because she is missing out on all the fun, all the stuff that is in there. So, at the age of 60, she started learning English. She actually started with books like Noddy and graduated to proper novels in front of my eyes. She, at that very same time, she also learned swimming. And by the next year, she was actually swimming laps in the lake, not the pool. So I do believe that there is no age bar for learning. I have been witness to it. The next day onwards, I started my tuition. Avva was a wonderful student. The amount of homework she did was amazing. She would read, repeat, write, recite mantra. You want to learn? Read, repeat, write, recite. Read, repeat, write, recite. Read, repeat, write, recite. It might be boring, but you're supposed to do the boring stuff. Nobody said that life will only be filled with interesting things. Life's not fair that way. I was her only teacher and she was my first student. Little did I know then that one day I would become a teacher in computer science and teach hundreds of students. The Dasara festival came as usual. Secretly, I bought Kashi Yatre, which had been published as a novel by that time. A lot of the novels that you people know of were actually at one point in time published in a serialized fashion. Later on, these episodes are collated and it is published in the form of a novel. My grandmother called me to the puja place and made me sit down on a stool. She gave me a gift of frock material. Yes, frock material. In those days, nobody gave full clothes to a person because it was just not available. You had to buy the dress material, take it to a tailor and get it made for yourself. Then she did something unusual. She bent down and touched my feet. I was surprised and taken aback. Elders never touch the feet of youngsters. We have always touched the feet of God, elders, and teachers. We consider that as a mark of respect. Now, I want you people to introspect. There are three entities mentioned here: God, elders, teachers. How often are you touching their feet? Think of it. How often? Okay? So that you will be successful. Without humility, success is only half true. So, think of it. We consider that as a mark of respect. It is a great tradition, but today the reverse had happened. It was not correct. She said, I am touching the feet of a teacher, not my granddaughter. A teacher who taught me so well, with so much of affection, that I can read any novel confidently in such a short period. Now I am independent. It is my duty. So you see, independence, literacy, independence, these are the two themes running through this particular story. It is my duty to respect a teacher. Is it not written in our scriptures that a teacher should be respected, irrespective of the gender and age? I did return her namaskara to her by touching her feet and gave my gift to my first student. She opened it and read immediately the title Kashi Yatre by Triveni and the publisher's name. I knew then that my student had passed with flying colors. Okay, so this is the story. Let me know if you have any questions.
If you want Vito on particular topic, let us know in comment section below.